Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance and money management.
Hey folks, welcome back to the summer series of the Property Couch, and welcome back to you too, Ben.
Hello mate, how are we?
Very good, I'm excited mate. I'm just so excited about these interviews that we get to do as part of the summer series, and today's interview is no different, Ben. We had a very, very interesting chat with a gentleman by the name of James, who we're going to cut to the interview shortly, but really, really good story about how he was wanting to overcome his money backstory.
I agree, I reckon. Well, let's go straight to that right now and we'll come back after this.
Here we go, here's our interview with James McLellan. All right, today, Ben, we've got another very special guest with us today. James McLellan has decided to come onto the Property Couch, Ben, and tell his story. First of all, welcome, James.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Oh yeah, mate, just delighted to have you on. Your backstory is cool. So I'm delighted that the community is going to get a chance to listen to all of the experiences that you've had. So I want to get straight into it.
Let's do that. Which are many. But James, let's get the listeners to learn a little bit about you. What's your backstory from a financial perspective? Let's learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So to give some sort of a snapshot around childhood and how money was relayed around the household. So I grew up in a small country town, 1,200 people in total in the population, in between Sydney and Melbourne. And
share with it, whereabouts?
Holbrook, the submarine town in so I'm not sure whether or not any of the listeners have been through there, but that's exciting stuff.
That's the one that has the submarine in the main road in town, right? And the kids play on it. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, it's a great spot. Yeah, and my kids have played on that. What's it called? Submarine? Yeah, it's cool.
Fantastic. So that was my childhood growing up was money in the household was, I guess, an issue between my parents and resulting in the separation of my parents. Ultimately, so that was growing up was something that money was always a stressor in the household. So we worked from an early age. So my first part-time job was when I was 13. I was cleaning out the diesel pits at a mechanic in town for $5 an hour. So that's where I started on a Saturday morning.
Yep.
My mother was the only member of the family who invested in property. She attempted to self-manage, that didn't go too well. Tenant in that property was had some financial issues and resulting in her losing a fair bit of money. So I guess property investment, I was a little bit afraid of taking the plunge to begin with. So my first property I was at 22. I saved for the deposits whilst at uni full time. That was in Albury-Wodonga, was my first properties. The value of that at the time was $170. It was a 2-bedroom unit. Basically, my thoughts there were to buy as close to the centre of town as possible. Not much science in that.
But not a
bad compass.
Yeah, walking distance to job opportunities and amenity. Can I ask a question on that particular property? We'll take a quick dive into that one. I'm assuming it rented out pretty easy, and you've always had a tenant in that property for as long as you hold it.
That particular property is the principal place of residence, and reason being is that, given that we were able to accumulate enough cash in offset, it was a good sort of springboard to be able to jump into to further investment properties. But the future plan for that particular property is to have that let in the next couple of years. Expect to get sort of $290 a week for that, so it's a reasonably good yield considering what we paid for that.
Yep. James, what was happening when you were thinking about entering into that property? What was there any anxiety at the time, given that you just sort of detailed a bit of backstory around mum's poor experience and property was a little bit fearful for you? What was going through your mind at the time?
Yeah, at that particular time, it was more, I think, thoughts around rent money was dead money. So it was just a matter of getting a foot in the door, which it was in its original state of 1970s, 1980s style property. So required a full cosmetic renovation. So that was another experience that I had at an early age, was renovating. It was more of finding somewhere to live at that point in time, finishing uni. So there was always the thought that it would be turned into investment, but it wasn't the main
driver or decision maker to get you there.
Yes.
So James, I want to go back to obviously a difficult household upbringing around finance, not so much around love or anything like that. Do you feel like you have a greater appreciation for the value of money, considering there probably wasn't a lot going around in your household when you were growing up?
I think that certainly was a key driver for work ethic that has served me well into the following subsequent years. It certainly was, and the scarcity of money around the household, although it caused angst internally, there is a benefit that I've derived from having that upbringing. Certainly, there was no silver spoon for sure.
And did that lead you on to exploring, to get educated around money and investing? Because I know in the notes that and your bit of a backstory about you did go and go to a lot of seminars and different types of things as you were doing that, your discovery and building out your knowledge. So do you think that was one of the key motivators for you to get educated, read all the books that you were reading?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fear of the unrest within the household that you have as a child will certainly, it puts a fire under you to go out there and try and make something so that you don't experience the same challenges within your own family unit. Yeah. So absolutely. I've been to many seminars and courses, some good, some bad, and took a lot of them with a grain of salt. And all of the books, all of the resources that I've sort of gathered over the years have certainly been with the thought of freedom in the back of the mind around what money can do for you.
Yeah, great.
As you wrote into us, you talked about being touched by the Spruiker seminar. Can you, without sort of being specific on names, because we won't call them out, but what was that experience like? And looking back now, was it almost a fork in the road and you could have gone down a slippery path?
It was very close to that. My fiance and I attended the seminar and left there with the thoughts around, if these people can do it, or maybe we can too. It was a long drive back from Melbourne, where the seminar was based, where we thought about it and we just thought we'll sleep on it. But certainly those seminars are set up for that scarcity mindset, with the limited time only sort of proposition around boot camps and things. So we dodged a bullet there, for sure.
Did you find that there was a bit of pressure, like on the night to sign up or on the day to sign up? And, kudos to you for, using that principle of don't sign anything on the day. Was there a lot of pressure selling there as well? Absolutely.
The pressure around the limited time that this will be going for, and also the free handouts that try and create some sort of mental commitment from you to reciprocate, the reciprocity. So that was certainly there. And to their credit, they did a great job of marketing and selling the sizzle. So,
And did they use a lot of examples of all of the equity that's being created quickly? And did they get a couple of guest speakers come up who, are up to their 5th property or something like that? So they had their talent placed in the audience to call out.
Absolutely, there was someone placed in the audience, so that was on point. Definitely the instant equity. There was quotes of around $150,000, instant equity and all these sort of things. And when you're in your early 20s, you think you're a little bit naive at the time.
Your eyes light up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's right. You think this is easy if everyone else can do it. So.
Yep.
Hey, did you listen to our episode earlier in the year around the mental triggers that these guys operate with?
I did catch that episode, yes.
Was it, because I noticed you talk about reciprocity and scarcity, were you sort of listening to that episode going, oh, tick, 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 I can relate to those?
Absolutely. There was several that both you guys hit on in that episode that were pulled out of the bag of tricks on that night. So.
Yeah, well, the idea is to equip people, to arm them with knowing what to look for, right? Which is pretty good. Hey,
you came close to buying a property in Albury based on some of their spruiking work. What was it that sort of pulled you away? Why do you think, in your words, lucky enough to miss that or avoid that disaster?
So there was two things that I guess contributed to that. Firstly, the property couch. I had commenced listening to that prior to following through on that particular purchase. I also undertook some training with Peter Kalezos, who you've had on the couch. He was running a course over a weekend, so that was fairly enlightening for me as well. I guess, again, decided to sleep on that and go and source other knowledge from third parties, independent third parties, before I went too far into that. And from listening to the property couch, as well as having that additional knowledge from Peter, I completely flipped 180 with the way that I approached my investing.
And that was a paid course from Peter, wasn't it? The weekend course that he does. So
correct. It was paid.
So nothing other than to sell, not trying to, sell you a house or anything like that. Fee for his content, his knowledge, no agenda other than to educate you on the right. They're the sort of educational courses and time well spent in building that knowledge. And as you said, you came away from that and avoided making a big mistake in buying in an area that you described. Describe it to the listeners in regards to what was it about that area that they were trying to sell on, which was, it was cash flow positive, but what did you learn about that area once you did your due diligence?
Very poor demographic profile in that area. So it was a lower income area of the particular city that I was looking in. So that was probably a red light for me. And also, even just driving around the street, it was not walking distance to any amenity. It was really sort of a first home buyer market potentially, but not long-term growth prospects. So it was certainly more of a yield.
Let's set the vision, James. What do you? So clearly, there's a backstory that's motivated you as a youngster. You've then gone and knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it. You almost acted on the wrong advice, and then you've now got yourself on the right path. What's the vision now for you going forward? How have you shaped where you're heading, and what does that look like?
So the portfolio that we've built together, my fiance and I, is now at the point where we have one more to acquire, and we're not far off, maybe a year or so to being able to sort of finance that. At that point, we'll still be pre-kids. So the plan has always been to purchase the properties early while we're young, and then get on with our life as you guys both advocates of, and to pay down. And it's more about freedom. In going through this journey, I have gone into different career paths in business for myself now. So I'm loving the work. So it's not an escape from a reality. It is more around having further freedom to spend time with our future kids.
So you bypassed the Albury opportunity, and once you got educated and you started to think about your plan, what did you do? Where did you buy? What type of asset did you start focusing on looking to buy?
So at the time that we purchased our first investment, the cash flow story at that time was fairly different to what it is now.
Yep.
So we purchased a 2-bed in a block of 4 units in Norwood in Adelaide.
Yep.
So about 50 metres from all the amenity along the parade in Adelaide, for those who know the area.
Yeah, it's an epic spot.
So the historical growth on that particular property was 7.5%, the yield sitting around 5%. So that fit with our plan. And as just going back to that plan piece, knowing what we were going after was important, because that then, we went borderless at that point. We were looking in our own backyard prior to that. So we decided that Adelaide was a good fit for us in our situation.
And did you get some professional help in buying that one, or did you try it on yourself and fly to the market and do all the legwork yourself?
That was we had assistance from a buyer's agent on that particular property, and looking back, I wouldn't have had the courage to do that. It's buying so far away from your home base is a scary thing for anyone, let alone
a young guy, who's learning, is feeling their way. So how's it been since you bought it? Rented easily? No problems with the block? No issues?
So same tenant since we settled, so that's 2016, so no issues at all. They've just renewed another 12-month lease. Rental increases have been just in line with market over the past couple of years. No problem at all. Brilliant tenants, extreme clean. Property managers are fantastic. So
focusing on a bit in the sinking fund as well there, James, given it's a body corporate, you're putting some money aside for future, tidy ups and repairs?
Absolutely. That's been factored into the plan from a cash flow perspective. So we're always putting that money aside in offset, waiting for the day to come where we need to spend some money to tidy up the property and whatnot.
And are you active on the body corporate?
I am. That particular one, I'm the secretary on that, and also on the property that we own as principal place of residence as well. So.
Oh, great. So you've got some experience there, which is great, and you're putting some money into the sinking fund, which is awesome. So it sounds like you've taken an active interest, and that's normally what we say to people who are buying in body corporates. It's like, don't be whinging about what's happening with your property if you're not active or having a say or keeping up to speed with that. So good on you for being able to do that and basically drive the agenda in terms of how that particular 4-pack is going to be looked after over for the next 20 or 30 years.
James, we're big advocates of planning, and from the discussion, it's very clear that you've had a plan built so that you know where you're going, and you're very calmly saying, well, I've got this property and I'm about to get the next one next year, those sorts of things. So it's like this methodical, follow the bouncing ball roadmap for you. But given we're advocates and you're an experienced person who's used the plan, what would be your message to someone who's considering just buying an investment property without a plan?
Well, I guess the question is where do you stop, and what exactly are you trying to fit that particular property in with? Because as you say, the minimum effective dose comment around getting to your goal, it's extremely important to just go the shortest route to where you want to be, rather than just setting sail and seeing how things turn out. So I've found that the plan's been really beneficial in that regard.
It gives you clarity, right? You don't, because a lot of people get significance out of saying, hey, look, I've got 10 properties, I've got 13 properties, I've got 20 properties. But I can assure people that if you get your self-esteem out the way, if you can get it done with 3 or 4, it's actually so much smoother and more straightforward. And the amount of times I've spoken to someone who's actually had 10, 13, 20 properties, they've gone, geez, I wish I could just sell them all and hold 4 or 5 really good ones, because they become a little bit of a nightmare. So I pinched that from Tim Ferriss. I know that you're a Tim Ferriss podcast listener, but the minimum effective dose is, how do I get to where I want to be, A to B, in the minimum, most optimal, effective way, so that I can just get on with getting on with it. And it sounds like you've adopted that philosophy.
I think also with the finance side, having a plan, setting yourself up for the next move in that plan, I'm not quite sure with no other experience how I would do that myself.
So you've got a broker who helps you with that?
We haven't used a broker, and the only reason being is that my mother is involved in one of the big four, and we've managed to get certain benefits by.
Yeah, good. That's fine. That's very good. Yeah. So, but obviously that's your investment savvy banker in a way, right? You know, they know what they're doing, and they can help you in that respect, because you know we talk about property is a game of finance. It's a game of cash flow. You know, the A, B, C, D, a game of defence. So you seem to be doing really well. So I want to check in. When did you sort of have the formal plan? About 2016, was it?
It was the beginning of 2016. So that followed on from 12 months of recording our household expenses. So we did that diligently for 12 months.
Yep.
And that information was used in the plan to determine how we would go about funding these ventures. Yep.
And then obviously you got visibility on cash flows and so forth. So, you know, you're almost coming up to, it was the early 2016, we're coming up to the fourth year. Tell us, you know, where you sit, and are you on plan, ahead of schedule, behind plan?
We're ahead of plan by a few years now. We settled on another property, our third property pre-election this year.
Yep.
And that particular property is in Herne Hill in Geelong.
Yep.
So it's 1940s weatherboard. I guess you would term it as a period home. It's a really nice, nice property in good condition. Also was tenanted from settlement 2 days after settlement, I believe. So that particular property is receiving $365 a week. So that property was planned to be purchased in 2022. So that's 3 years ahead of schedule.
Why do you think you're ahead of schedule? What's the reason for that, James?
The majority of that has been personal growth around income, and it's certainly transformed our situation. And going back to giving you guys a plug on the property couch, it certainly put a fire under us to get out and get after it, if you like, and try and make something of our situation. So we saw a goal in that plan that we wanted to achieve, and once it was written down and we could see that and envisage it, we went and made alterations to our circumstances to try and achieve that. So.
And are you happy to share your age to our listener base in terms of how old you and your lovely fiancée are?
So I'm 29 and my fiancée is 26. And
you got 3 properties.
Hang on a second. These millennials can't get on the property ladder, I thought. How's that even possible? No.
Now. Yeah, but it's proof that they can. Mm-hmm. It is still difficult if you want to get into a big city and you've got to save a deposit.
Well, the point in saying that is that it is possible for millennials to get on if they actually realise that there is a choice to make.
Yep.
And the choice is lifestyle or getting on the property ladder.
And James made that choice, 2-bedroom apartment in Auburn. Yep. But there's a good example of, you know, making a sacrifice, but still, you know, what did you buy? How much you pay for it? 170 odd?
170. It is in a block of 8, and that is the sacrifice. We've lived in that particular property now since 2012, and there's been sacrifice, but there's no reward without sacrifice.
Correct. Now, I've never seen anyone be successful without sacrifice, or anyone who's been successful financially without spending money to make money.
Yeah.
If you can do that in both regards, give me what the secret is, because I don't think there's anything that you don't get without hard effort. You get the reward, and you've got to have to spend it to make it. You know, and that could be educating yourself, but also getting professionals to come in and do that work for you as well.
James, what is your message to millennials who might be thinking it's hard to get on the ladder?
Yeah, look, I think that it's more of an expectation around what's achievable, around the firstly starting small and then building your way up, rather than trying to start with the McMansion in inner city. Where there's a will, there's a way, and I think that everyone who's in that position will find value in just making small sacrifices, and that's not the passing up on the smashed avocado as you were both have commented on before. It's more around the big things in life, the houses and the cars and those major expenses. So if you're able to get those in check and live a modest lifestyle, which we're all very fortunate in this country to be well off just by the factor of being born here. So I think that everyone in that position can probably take something away from that.
100%.
Good perspective. We won the ovarian lottery being born here. Hey, the fact that you have a plan, therefore we know that you've been exposed to the Money Smart system. What is your feedback on Money Smarts, and how is that playing a role in your money management?
Well, it's been critical for how we've progressed. There was at one point before Money Smarts and before I had our household financials in order, a car battery went in my car and I couldn't afford to pay for a car battery. So $160, I think it was at the time, to get to work. So, so I've gone from there to getting the household in order to implementing Money Smarts. So we're paid weekly, that weekly float that you both talk about, and you just don't have to think about it. It's on autopilot, and you can get on with focusing on either generating more income, if that's the goal, to try and to get further down the path with your investment journey. So
is that a bigger picture play for you too, in terms of the fact that money stress was something that you saw growing up, and you're motivated to not have money stress in your house going forward with your fiance? Is that to talk us through what peace of mind that gives you to know that you don't have to pass that legacy on to your future family?
I think that it's more the benefit that the household would receive for your children, knowing that you have a clear path to hopefully an early retirement. In saying that, I don't believe in retirement. I'll probably work until I'm 80, hopefully, but it's more around doing things that fill you up rather than take away from you. So I think that the focusing more time on raising your children, and that's the sort of peace of mind that money can give you.
So speaking of kids, what's in the plan? How many? When? Tell us a bit more about that story.
Yeah, so that's a sticking point with us.
So you might go off plan there,
yeah, we don't know. That's a hard one to plan sometimes. So two to three children would be what we would expect, and that would be 3 to 4 years from now. I'd say we've got to get through a wedding first. So.
Yeah, so wedding. So big rocks in the jar. Wedding, honeymoon. Then it's kids. But is there any plans for an upgrader or something like that? If you continue to keep doing really, really well in your business and doing really well on the income side and trapping that surplus, do you see yourself tweaking the plan or improving the plan in any way? Or tell us a bit about that story.
Absolutely. The next purchase will be primarily an owner-occupied to try and start to settle things down a little bit. As we discussed about, there's been that sacrifice, and I think that there gets a certain point where you decide that there's probably more to life than being uber focused on financial goals. So it's a matter of trying to spread that out, and I think that that's come with experience and going through that journey. You wouldn't have been able to tell me that at the beginning. I was too keen to get to the end.
Walk a mile, see a mile, and that's what does happen. I mean, it's anyone who's laying out a 40-year plan for their life early on is in fool's land if they think that they're going to not have any changes or tweaks or pivots along that. But the more efficient you be from point A to point B, is what you were saying before with Tim Ferriss's model, the better you'll be in terms of that, and you won't burn a huge amount of cash. You might burn a little bit on the sides, but not too much.
I love the wisdom that James is showing it. Gosh, I look back at myself when I was that age, and I wasn't even close to his wisdom. So, hey, you mentioned when we were sort of in the lead up to this, you had a life before Property Couch and after Property Couch, sort of BPC and APC. With the focus on the principles and what you've learned, what has been the biggest impact from the teachings and the learnings that we've shared on the podcast?
I think that it's more the mindset, to be honest, rather than although the advice and guidance around picking assets is valuable, it's certainly more the mindset side of what you guys have managed to put out there. So, and that's coupled with various other virtual mentors that and listening to podcasts obsessively and all that sort of thing, just filling your mind with positive thoughts. It's amazing what you can achieve in a short period of time. So certainly that part of the podcast has been super valuable for myself.
Can we drill down on that? Is that where, like, we've been able to say that you don't have to sort of hock yourself to the eyeballs? There's, you don't need to have double figures in properties. Is there anything in particular that, for the benefit of the people that might be listening to this, that they can drill down to sort of absorb the lessons that you've absorbed?
I think that it's building the investment piece around your lifestyle rather than the other way around. That certainly creates, it creates clarity for us in our situation. So I think that a lot of the work that both yourselves have done in trying to get the message across that you don't need 10, 20. It doesn't have to be this grind and consistently always going after the next
thing. Of who's got the most. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah, because that's a significance game. That's an ego game. We're not interested in that. We actually want to get real outcomes where people get real transformation in lifestyle.
Certainly, and that mindset shift was certainly helpful. And as I say, with one more that we intend on purchasing as an investment, then that's it. We've got no interest in continuing that further. So,
how does that feel to know that it's not just an accumulation game? Because a lot of people who are investing without some form of plan like you just think the game is keep more. Whereas you just said, well, I'm going to buy one more and I'm going to put the queue in the rack and then get on with life. Can you sort of articulate what that feels like to know that the job is done?
It's a strange feeling because when you've gone through that accumulation phase, it's the first one is obviously always the hardest, and then from there things get a little easier. And coming to a point where you don't need to continue it just allows you the freedom to go and pursue other things in life rather than all financial related goals. So.
Nice. It's like that first step, right? I mean, when you're learning how to walk, that's the hardest one, and then the more you take, the easier it gets. And I think that's really true. I mean, so it's an absolute credit to yourself, James, and also to your fiance in terms of what you're doing. Is there, in knowing that you're coming onto the podcast, is there any sort of other messages that you want to share with the community around, your takeaways and some of the things you'd say you would do over again, or that everyone should try and do?
I think the education piece was important, and I would suggest to any of the listeners to fact check certain things from people in the property industry, and just cross check it against other independent parties. That was a saviour. That was the bullet dodged for myself. So that, as well as having a clear plan, because it allows you to be focused every day when you wake up and you're focused on the goal. You just have clarity and direction, and it's just so important. You don't get pulled in different directions, and you get to just nail in and focus on what you're trying to achieve.
So I just want to tune in a little bit on that when you say fact check and do your research, because you must have found some information on that Spruiker group that sort of cooled your jets a bit on them. What did you do? Did you do a Google search? Did you ring around? How did you find out that they might necessarily been the business that you wanted to work with?
It was as simple as a Google search. There was an ACCC article around
enforceable undertaking, it's called. Yep, you're right. Got it.
Some questionable behaviours that particular seminar had been involved in, and as soon as I saw that, I decided that it's probably best I got a second opinion. So
it's not a bad one, I mean, I've never said this before, but I mean, one of the questions you could ask any Spruiker, have you had an enforceable undertaking? Because in my previous life in Pippa, we knew all the businesses that had ASIC on their back, and they had these enforceable undertakings, right? And they obviously spend a lot of money on the websites trying to hide this information. Because they've got professional people who can take away these bad reviews or whatever they're doing, right? So if there is an enforceable undertaking, it's not a bad question. Now, in some cases, it's worth asking because it may have been a circumstance, they may have improved their situation. I'm not saying they're dead ducks, But if you say, look, has your business ever had an enforceable undertaking or any problems with the regulators? And, if they answer that correctly, if they say, no, we never have, and you find something on them, well, then straight away you're on a mile. But, okay, explain to me, why was that? What were you doing at that time that led you to have the regulators on your back? Because you may have been doing something right, or a lot wrong to have a regulator on your back.
My thing is the shortcut, the life hack, is around just quickly find out if there's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Who's paying the bills? Is it me as the client or is it someone else? And if it's me as the client, that's the first tick. And if it's someone else, well, that's the first cross. In fact, it's a pretty big cross.
It's a big cross.
Yeah.
I believe that the other thing that potentially is used from those seminar spruikers is they'll use a background in accounting or in some sort of other property related specialty to try and create validity around what they're trying to sell. So that was certainly in this instance. So probably the other piece of advice would be to, regardless of the background of the property advisor or educator, that it's still worth fact checking against some other resource and as simple as a Google search.
Awesome advice,
mate. I'm impressed by your story. I think lots of people will find it inspirational. When you wrote into us, you said that the lessons that you learn in bullet point is obviously 1, to have a plan. 2 is consider being a borderless investor. 3, investing is a game of finance. 4, cash flow can cause strain in relationships, so make sure you get on top of that. And 5, there are some people out there who you can trust. You got to sift through the weeds to find them. So, are they still the main takeaways for you?
Absolutely. They're sort of those pillars that everything's been built on. Certainly, just getting the cash flow in order, that was critical, and the plan. It's probably the most important when looking back. Just having a goal to try and achieve.
Yeah, and I think for people who are thinking about, that this still scares them, some of the advice I give face to face when I'm dealing with a client is, let's just buy the first one. But don't worry about number 2, number 3, or number 4. Let's just, I'm not going to recommend we buy 4 in a year, right? I'm going to recommend, let's just buy 1. Right? Now, you may have the capacity to buy that second one inside 6 months. You could go 1, 2, right, based on your situation or whatever it is, depending on the household. But I'm going to say, no, let's just put it to bed. Let's see how it goes for 6 months. Let's see how you feel. Now, if you come back to us and say, I'm ready to go again because it's not as daunting as I think it is, then that's fine. I mean, you've heard James' story. They've moved one of their purchases forward because they've got more comfortable. And in any modelling that you do, you're always making sure that you've got a buffer. So even though, James, your income has risen, because you're running Money Smarts well, but in a lot of cases your modelling will have higher interest rates than what we see today, that's also another reason why you're able to fast track yourself in terms of moving your journey forward. So again, credit to you that you just haven't let that money slip past you. You've been able to trap that. You've been able to build a business and get some higher income coming through. So I think there's some of the other takeaways that we want to share with the community. It's like, don't worry about 3 or 4. Just start with 1. Mm-hmm. Let's walk. Let's crawl and let's stand up and let's start to walk before we run. And I think that's also a good message as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The plane uses most of the fuel on the takeoff, and so when it levels out, it's pretty good.
Cruising away.
Hey James, you're a real credit to your parents and your family in terms of how you've used that as a springboard to honour what they've done for you, but also to make sure that you have intergenerational change that starts with you. So your story is inspiring. Well done on being a multiple property investor before you're 30. I think there's a lot to be excited about your life, and with things coming up, you're getting married, you're looking at potentially your next dream home. Your plan is well and truly in play. So and your business is growing. So
hey, just on the business, what's the name of the business, James?
It's Peak Survey and Developments, surveying and land development business. So
here we go. So, and what's the website?
www.peaksurveydevelopments.com.au.
Okay, so if you're interested in the information there, you didn't expect that, did you, James? Like, he didn't do that. We're giving a shout out to him. All right.
It's like when I put Ben on the spot to remember one of our websites. it's kind of
good on you, mate. We wanted to shout out the business because you've done such a great job, and obviously your attention to detail is really strong. So I'm sure if people reach out to you and want to get some work done in that space, that's good news for them.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on to the Property Couch, mate. I think Ben and I say this all the time, but people who are prepared to come on and be transparent and brave, because money's not an easy to talk about subject. We're trying to change that, but it's not an easy to talk about subject. So the fact that you come on, be transparent, share your ideas, share your thoughts, I think that's transformational stuff for our community, mate. So well done.
Thank you both for all of the work that you do, and kudos to everyone there in the team at the Property Couch.
Yeah,
thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ben, I say it all the time, but how good was that?
Yeah, no. Again, another quality story. Two big themes for me. One is very much around how he changed his money story. So he didn't grow up with a lot, grow up in a broken household in a way as well. So to change that, to break the mould and step out of that, and he's still going, still only in his 20s. Right,
mature.
Very mature, obviously, got it.
Shines a big light on us, doesn't it, when we think about how mature or immature we were back in our 20s, and we get to talk to some of these people who are got some wisdom and some...
So, obviously adopted money smarts, is now on a journey, multiple property portfolio. So from that point of view...
Doesn't want to retire, Ben. So really the portfolio is about just creating choice. So they get busy doing experiences and all those sorts of things they want to do, but doesn't want to retire.
On the same page with his fiancée in terms of what that story looks like. So just another great example of someone who's saying, breaking the mould, I'm getting out of here. This is... if it is to be, it's up to me, and taking action on their own journey.
Good on you, James. We appreciate you being transparent. We appreciate you telling people about your story. And Ben, before we go?
Well, also just a reminder there, don't forget he went to the seminars, he went to the Spruiking seminars. So, always be careful, never sign anything that you go and see on the night, because it's high pressure selling, even if you don't believe or feel it is. They're out there to sell you something. We'll put a link
in the show notes, Ben, regarding the triggers that the Spruikers want to enact, so that we can actually help you out. So if you're hearing James' story for the first time, or you haven't listened to every one of our podcasts, that will give you an easy opportunity to listen to that stuff. But thanks again, James. We hope you enjoyed that. And Ben, I'm enjoying this summer series, but there's more to come. So until next week.
Knowledge is empowering, Bryce, but only if you act on it.
See you next week, folks.
Hey there folks, Bryce Holdaway here. Before you go, if you're new to our community and only listened to maybe a handful of episodes, I thoroughly recommend that you go all the way back to episode number 1, where we unpack all of the foundations when it comes to property investing. Now for those of you that might be a little bit time poor, I've got good news for you. We have a binge guide that you can download straight away, which summarises the first 20 episodes where Ben and I unpack the foundational pillars of the A, B, C, D, and so much more. And you can get that straight away. If you go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20, you can download it and consume it whenever you want. It's completely free and available now. And for those of you, just a quick reminder that nothing we've spoken about today constitutes financial advice. We recommend that you reach out to your licensed professional advisor so that you can look at your unique circumstances before acting on any information. Now don't forget, go to thepropertycouch.com.au/TPC20 and get your binge guide today.